Hello, and welcome to our 11th Arma Reforger modding bootcamp, this one being on environmental design. In this bootcamp, environmental designer Jujurat will go over the basics of the world editor and the essentials to using the world tools. This includes things like importing data and world prefab setup, the use of force generators in the context of polylines and spleens, some minor notes about terrain materials, and other things that are useful to know to start creating terrains. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jujurat. Take it away.
Hi. So this is like covered. This is going to be a very basic tutorial and pretty much familiarization with the terrain tools. So if you are someone that has already used them quite extensively, there's also some information I decided I wanted to include that might not be documented. So there will be something for you as well, but perhaps you might know it already. But regardless, we'll begin. So, in an essence, I'm going to assume that you already know the basics of the Infusion workbench. So what I've done here is I've just made a project. I named it Terrain Test. And you can see it's rather empty. There's nothing in here at the moment. I just opened the world editor. So nothing too complicated, really. Obviously, if you want to really know the basics of the workbench, then there are other videos that you can watch that will better, explain all the different, different suite of tools that is included with the Infusion workbench. But really, this is just meant. So let's just really get started with it. So first things first, really, what you want to do is use your resource browser, and if you don't know the difference, I'll briefly explain it right here. So your resource browser has pretty much everything that's really in the game altogether. It's a good way to summarize it. So if we look through, we have all the configs here, prefabs, which I'll get to in a minute. We have the scripts, sounds, terrains, etc., etc. So it's your general way to navigate all the content that's in the game. And your prefab library is specifically for terrain objects, your generators, these sorts of things. But since we're not really dealing with prefabs quite yet because we don't have a terrain, we're just going to look for something called generic terrain default. And pretty much what this is the entity that's going to be end up being our height map. So you always want to zero this, and that's to avoid any problems that might arise with whether it might be player collision or something of the nature. Make sure you're zeroing this. But once we do that, we just drag it into the frame. You can see here in our hierarchy, which is something I'll cover in a moment here. But for the sake of being brief and having brevity, let's just keep this smooth sailing. So save it, obviously. Save frequently. It's a good note that I want to mention, by the way, for terrain makers. I highly recommend that you follow the structure that's been established in Reforger already. So you can see here we have our worlds folder. I would recommend making a worlds folder, and then of course following suit. For example, we'll just make this. It's not very good for continuity, but we'll name it test terrain, and we'll name the entity test terrain as well. So now that we've done that, we can right-click on our generic terrain entity object, or the entity, the object properties, which is right here. So here we have a dialog, and I'm going to explain what all these do because as far as I'm aware, there isn't a whole lot of explanation. Well, there's some, but I want to make sure that it's clarified and everybody knows, so what's going on here. So obviously the name is just a name. There's nothing really complicated, so we can just call it test terrain. So our grid size, so pretty much all the terrains that are in Infusion are made up of grids and tiles and also blocks. So you have a certain amount of blocks per tile. So our tile size, for example, will I have something prepared as an example. So we have like a pretty basic setup here, and just give me a moment because I need to do some math. But, so this theoretically, if we to run a 5 kilometer terrain with 4 blocks per tile and the grid cell size to 2, then we set the tile size to 2560. But anyway, as I was saying, the amount of blocks per tile is pretty, it determines pretty much, the tile area, which is, it's very vague, but the grid size in particular is, if you didn't know, it's the distance between the vertices and the terrain mesh. So it pretty much determines the fidelity of the terrain quality. So you want to really think of your entire terrain as one big mesh. And each of these blocks that are in these tiles is one draw call. So the more blocks you have in a tile, which can, the blocks will determine how many terrain surface materials you can use, and so on and so forth. But the amount of these small blocks that you have, they're, the more blocks you have, the more draw calls. So in essence, the larger the terrain, the more performance demanding it's going to be. So that's something to keep in mind. The height scale is sort of self-explanatory, but in the technical explanation, which is going to sound a bit confusing because I don't quite have the details to clarify all these at the moment on hand, but in essence, 16-bit integer format is what the terrain height map is internally set up as, and the height scale value is the difference between like minimum delta, which pretty much it's a whole lot of math, and you can go on the wiki to get a more generalized understanding of this. But for this example, we're going to leave all this stuff pretty much default. The only thing I'm changing is the terrain grid size, just because I want the whole terrain space to be 5 kilometers. And the 0 to height chord is pretty much how much elevation range will be used by the terrain under the sea level. So I'm assuming this is all on the wiki. If it's not, then it will certainly be added there. So definitely go read that if you're curious. So anyway, we'll get started, and excuse my sort of mismatched notes, but I wanted to give some sort of explanation. And obviously, if you have any questions about that, I'll be sure to get an answer to you. It's pretty important that everybody knows the stuff they need to know, and obviously I'm trying to spread as much knowledge as I can. While being conservative with the time, because there's quite a lot to cover and there's not a whole lot of time. So there's some things that I'm just gonna skip over or maybe not explain so well, and I apologize for that. But anyway, once we're in here, we have, as you can see, a really basic flat square, not very impressive. Now, the great thing about Infusion is that we can immediately start to do something with this if you really wanted to. I know there was an issue in the past with the camera bounds bug, and that's thankfully been fixed, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. But anyway, so now that we're here, if you wanted to, you of course could hit Control-T, which is your terrain tool, and you can start sculpting right away. Now there's a couple different options in here, which I'll just briefly go through. You can see we have our strength. It's pretty similar if you understand photo editing applications or anything like that. We have very similar settings to brush settings and any sort of photo editing application. So we have like angles, and we'll just generate this and let it do its thing. But different angles, strengths. Obviously, if you're going to make a height map from scratch, it's going to take quite a while, so I would really recommend that you invest some time into looking into third-party height map software. Obviously, I'm not going to give a tutorial on how to use that, but I will explain how to import it once you're done with it, which we'll start doing right now. So I have something here on our desktop. So for this example, I've pretty much sourced one of Arma's legacy terrains, Utah's, which was also released for DayZ under a sample, but I think it's a great starting point just to show these things. So you can see here in our imported width and height, it's pretty rudimentary stuff. It's the the tile size that was pretty much selected, so it's fine. Invert in z-axis, it's what it says on the tin. It's pretty much like flipping the height map if there's any problems with if it might be height scaling, or depending on how the information was outputted or what sort of format we're using. We're using .asc right now, so there shouldn't be any problems with that. We don't want to resample the heights because this data should be fine, but depending on what program you're using, you have the parameters to be able to influence that import to account for how that data was exported from whichever program you used. So it's all there, but this stuff should be work pretty good. So we're going to import that. Yes, it's fine. We don't have anything on the undo stack, which, by the way, you can change if you want to increase the amount of undos. If you're prone to making big mistakes, you can do that in the settings. But terrain, this stuff, generate normal map. So with my broken explanation of tiles, that is much better read than me vocally explaining to you. Same difference. This will just determine pretty much the resolution of the normal maps. The default settings are fine for this all intents and purposes. So depending on where you are, so in this particular height map, the island is in the top right corner. So it's something we'll remedy in a moment here. So this, you can't really tell, but it's there, believe me, which will segue into my other quick little thing here about all the different options, which I haven't gone over yet. Obviously, if you use Workbench before, you have your channels. So you can see here, we have the ability to look in our wireframe. So we can see all the verts, see our cell size in action, which is 2 meters. So it's pretty easy. Good way to, if you're doing any like high level sculpting of the terrain, anything like that, it's a good way to be able to tell like what's going on. You can also use the different channels. You can just use the emissive or albedo channels in here, or you can use global layer, or you can use the world normals. Whatever your preference is, you can use it. There's so many possibilities. Or if you just want to sculpt it like this without any of the entities set up, you can of course do that. It's all fine. But anyway, so I'm kind of doing this out of order, but I'll explain why in just a second. So what we're going to do now is we're going to import the SAT. These settings are fine, just like I said before. And we're going to hit Control S and save, and this will start building textures. So while we're doing that, I'm going to pretty much explain all the different prefabs that we have and really set this world up. So after we made our terrain and we created it and we imported the height map, we have these little entities over here, these little prefab things in our hierarchy. And if we go under the object properties down here, we can see that there's a whole lot of stuff to fill in. And this stuff is essential. Now, on the Biki, there is documentation on some of this stuff, such as the different clouds and sky presets and all the different things you can use. So be sure to look there if you're curious. But if you're just looking to get the terrain up in speed, whatever, just follow along. So for the sky preset, this is pretty simple. It's just the atmosphere material. So atmosphere.emap. Clouds. We're using the volumetric clouds renderer, so we're going to use the volumetric emat. Ocean materials, ocean. Ocean simulation, you can use Ocean Sim Island. These also do their own things, but for the sake of we're making an island, and I think it's preferable that you use Ocean Sim Island because we want to use the rather nice shore simulation, and for water we use Bump Sim, and obviously lens flares. So it doesn't look quite right yet, so we need more prefabs, but this is a very important part setting all this up in this generic world terrain entity. Very pretty essential. You want to make sure you have all these filled in because you might have some undesired side effects, especially if you don't have the atmosphere in. You'll be wondering why there's no sky. It doesn't look very good right now, but we're missing a lot of prefabs, but I'm gonna go over those one by one. But like I said, I apologize if there's any brevity. There's quite a lot that we need to do. So first thing that we're going to put in to fix our eyes is a generic post-processing default, and this is a prefab that is pretty nice. It's pretty much an all-in-one prefab. You drag it in there, and we have all of our things in here. So if you open if you uncollapse this prefab hierarchy ordeal, you can see we have all of our stuff in here. We have our God rays, all the post-processing effects that everybody has come to expect from modern games, HDR, height map, ambient occlusion, etc., etc. I'm not going to go into great detail about what each one of these does. You can look into it yourself. It's kind of out of scope for this, but they're there, and that prefab is also there. And before I go any further, I also forgot to mention that if you're not really looking to make full-fledged terrain and you're looking to make something basic, there is somewhere in here in the plugins section, world setup, and you can use this as well to get a very base world setup, and it will actually do quite a bit of this for you as far as setting up all these basic the materials and whatnot. It won't do all this and add all of our prefabs that we need, but it will add the essentials. So if you're someone that's looking to do, just basic tests, play around with the tools, and you don't want to sit here and meticulously click and drag things in, you can do that as well. But just a note that I thought would be useful, because I'm not sure how many people have seen that. So another thing I'll put in now is Camera Manager. Camera Manager is pretty useful. It's good for controlling the third-person camera if you want to go in and test your terrain by using this big green play button, which I'll get to these all very soon. But pretty much it makes sure that stuff all works. Lighting default is the next one we need. This is also another essential prefab. You really do need this, and I know it's a bit ironic that I put lighting default in there and it turned the screen black, but trust me, it's working. Fog haze default is another prefab we need. This obviously controls the fog haze. We need that. Next thing we need is Time and Weather Manager, and this is where you can see things are starting to look a little bit more not so bleak. So you need that as well. It's kind of important. Some additional stuff I'll add a bit later, but for now these are kind of like the essentials. I think that's pretty much everything that is pretty much needed for the sake of not getting off track too much later on. I'm going to put this in here and explain what that does later. But okay, so now we have our terrain kind of in, and I made a mistake that a lot of people do make that I wanted to do just to show this. So pretty common issue I see a lot being brought up is the color of grass in terrains, because our surface material and our clutter is influenced by the satellite image. So pretty much on import, obviously you need a satellite image, but some people, they might forget to uncheck in linear color space. So make sure you please do this, depending on how your image is presented. Usually though, if you are running on PNGs, which most people are, because they're pretty lossless and they're pretty good quality and much superior than bitmap images, make sure you do that, and you'll see now our sat map looks much more natural because it's in linear color space. So if you were ever working on a sat map and weren't sure why it was so bright, that's the solution for that. Okay, so now that that's kind of over, and you've listened to me talk your ears off about a lot of miscellaneous stuff all in one go, we'll kind of focus on just all the different tools and what to do, and really some important stuff and some things that I think the community might know less about that I want to make sure everybody's up to speed on. And we'll start that by importing our first materials. So under our terrain tool, if we go into paint, you can see that we have one terrain material currently, and it's the default one. And this is where you need to be very thoughtful, because believe it or not, the order in which you import these surface materials is essential to the parallax map, the height map sorting. Essentially, this will control what goes on top of what. And so the way I like to think about it, and everybody is free to do this however they want. This is just for my personal preference. Don't take it as like something that you need to do. Like, you don't need to do this, realistically speaking. There's completely nothing wrong. It's not like the engine will have any problems if you just throw the materials in there in no particular order. But it's a really good preference. So pretty much the top of this list is really the last material, like the very core. Think of it as layers of earth. So what does grass grow on? It grows on dirt. So yeah, you want to put dirt in there, and we can type dirt in here and find under our terrains common surfaces folder, find dirt. And now I know this doesn't look very good, but don't worry, don't get scared. So for additional ones, I'm just going to go through and show you. Pretty much it's as simple as dragging and dropping. So you can go into here. So Arma Reforger, we'll use these. Arma Reforger, the provided surface materials to start with, just to make this really easy. If we go in this folder, click on it, you can find a full list of EMATs, which are your surface materials. So we have quite a lot to choose from, but this is where you really think about like what's sorted on what, and I'll be able to show you how this effect really works up in detail once we import these. So I don't plan on having a whole lot of materials in this example. I'll throw pebbles in there. We can throw debris rock, throw grass 02, grass 03, and that's pretty much it. I don't think I'll need anything else. Obviously, there's nothing stopping you from using every single one of these, besides the limit, which is five materials per block, and you can use those up to your heart's content. But just be careful of that limit, take it into account. But realistically speaking, most terrains aren't going to need more than the 5, 6. But obviously, if you're someone that's looking to really go all out and add as much as possible, then feel free to completely go crazy with the surface materials. But now that we're at this stage and we have some surface materials, just for an example, I'm going to stay here, which in my terrain tool, which by the way is Control T. We can paint, so can sort of see what's going on here. That so chances are, if I click through these dialog windows too quickly, I apologize, but really they're just asking for the tile resolution. So it's consistent earlier just with the normal map. I just hit OK because it's 256 pixels. That's fine. So we'll paint some grass, and I'll show you what I'm talking about as far as this sorting of the height field. So all over the surface materials, they all have this parallaxing. So you can see here, this is parallaxing. It's your height map, not height map in the literal sense of where it's a terrain, but like your parallaxing. So it's pixels in a part of a texture that are jutting up that your graphics card is artificially doing. They're not actual verts. It's magic. But anyway, the order in which you put these surface materials will determine the order of them. So, for example, if I would have made the base material grass, then the dirt would have been on top of the grass. But since I didn't do that, and grass grows on dirt, then you can see here we have, in my opinion, a much more satisfying transition between the two surface materials. And it's more sensible. Most of the time it looks better. A lot of the surface materials that are provided by us are made with this in mind. So please, if you are ever having problems with this and you weren't sure, this is why. So double check your surface material sorting. Make sure that you don't have something above something else. Just remember that the order is like top to bottom, so or vice versa rather. So this is our very bottom layer, and then this is all the stuff that is on top of it. So pebbles will go on top of dirt, so on and so forth. So now that that's explained, I just wanted to get that out of the way. I can briefly talk about how these kind of work by opening them. All these surface maps, which I'm going to explain this because I'm imagining that most people that are making terrains are probably doing it on their own. They don't really have an entire team of people, and it's very likely that you're going to end up doing a lot of the work yourself, even the texture work, maybe even vegetation, structures, who knows. But there's also stuff on the wiki for this, and documentation to explain what each of these maps do. Your NHO map, that's your normal, your height map, your AO, AO being ambient occlusion. Your BCR obviously is just your albedo, your roughness map that's in the channels. Of course, you can always inspect these in the workbench, and you can look at the various channels, really get an understanding of how they work, which is great. Middle map, which we'll go over in a minute. This is kind of your supplementary texture that will sort of diffuse the landscape between the distances where you have your close proximity ground detail texture and your satellite image that we imported earlier. So that's pretty much what this is. It's your little buffer zone. So it's the image that gets presented on the ground when you're not close enough to be really rendering, or really you should be rendering that fully fledged 2K, 1K, whatever high resolution ground detail texture. But you don't want to just render the huge sort of blurry blob of satellite imagery either. So you kind of want something to ease the transition between the two different textures, and that's what the middle map is. You can see there's plenty of settings there in here. But this is just a quick little topic, quick little explanation, because it sort of ties into the whole thing. But anyway, that's kind of over. And we have all of our prefabs in here. We can start to take a look at our terrain. So the first thing you might be curious about is if we look at our generic terrain default entity, which is in the hierarchy here, and you can see the class and the names here. Sorry if you can see them earlier. We can change these distances from these textures that I just explained. So middle distance, it's your middle texture. Okay, you can change that, and that'll sort of decide that for you. These sliders right here. You can change the blend, which is pretty much an opacity slider, if you want to think of it like that, like how soon, like hardness, softness, similar to the terrain brush tools. Really, it's the blend. It's on the 10. Your close distance. That's your detail texture, your GDT that I would call it. It's how quick that sort of comes into frame and how quick it's rendered and whatnot. So you can control this very well depending on what textures you have, how you want them to flow together. It's it's not so restrictive by any means. You have plenty of control to do whatever you want. as far as the blending of those textures go. For the sake of having this set up, we're gonna just leave it as a 500. I like 500, around there. Doesn't really matter what you do. It's up to your personal preference. You can sort that however you want. And another thing I'm going to do before we continue is you'll probably notice that the sat image is dark when we're far away. Don't be discouraged by this. Pretty much it's just a byproduct of building all the terrain tiles. The really simple solution to that is just to reload the terrain. Boom. Not a big deal. It's just something that happens when you import a satellite map for the first time. Or again, if you refresh it, but it's all there. So far, just to recap, since we're a little bit far in and I've already shown all the prefabs and everything like that and gave a brief explanation on the import settings. Admittedly, I could have probably done it a bit better, but you can obviously look that up. We've imported the height map. We made a normal map by default by sculpting terrain, and we have a surface map sort of, which I'll do more in a minute. Satellite maps there. We have our surfaces in. We didn't build a shore map yet, which is really simple to do because it's one button in the terrain tool, which you can just do it here. Build a shore map. And there might be some questions about why the waves aren't on all the shores, and I see this sometimes as well, and that's because the ocean is simulated just as it is in real life. Some of the shores, they don't face open seas. Okay. Sorry, we're having some technical issues. Everybody can still hear me, hopefully. Okay. Sorry about that. Awkward pause. Wanted to make sure the sound was working. So, as I was saying, in real life, all of our shores aren't going to face open seas, especially on an island, and wherever there, is a shore that's really facing the open sea, which is your north and your southern, shores. Obviously, you're going to have these parts of your terrains. This is what's facing the open sea, so that's why the waves are coming this way. Obviously, you can have like tide shift and everything. It's quite elaborate. I'm not going to give everyone a lesson on the way the ocean works, but if that's what you were wondering, why is the shores, why are the waves not hitting this side of the island, for example? That's why. Just wanted to throw that out there while we were talking about this. So another big thing that I realized just now that I forgot to do, we want to set up the planet, which I completely forgot about. My apologies. Make sure that you're setting up your planet, because you're really making your own little universe here. So just sun, moon, stars, and you can type that right in here and it'll show all up, and then you have your sun and everything. See? And by the way, that was the time, your time and weather manager, which is this big button right here. So you can change the time. So another one of the last things you should probably do is to set all this up. So your geographic coordinates, you really want to make sure you set this up properly. So the rough geographic location where your terrain is, so your lat and lons, that sort of thing. The date as well, you can choose a starting date, for players that might start on your terrain. If they're putting game modes onto it, set the date, play around with that. Obviously, just like the ocean, this is fully simulated, so depending on where the geographic chords are set up, you might have shorter days or longer nights or vice versa, so something to keep in mind. The rest of the stuff I'm not going to really go over, but essentially these are all of your weather states, which you can also find documentation for. So But for now, we'll get back to just doing very basic things and not making it too complicated. So the next thing I'll do is, along with the pre-preparation of the height map and the sat map, which I just very briskly threw together, is I also made some basic masks. So as I was explaining earlier, all of our surfaces, unlike the previous proprietary technology of real virtuality, are not really on colors anymore. They're on grayscale. So essentially, you can really think of this as, well, I can actually show you with a little key here. So if you hold Control-Alt-L, you can get a little debug mode that you can't really get through these options up here, but it will show you all the different layers. So this is really good if you're painting, surfaces, and you really want to have like a really easy way to look at, where, what surfaces you have in like what block, or, so on and so forth. But you can think of this pretty much as a good representation of what I'm talking about. So currently right now, this is dirt. So dirt really is the black, because it's like the core, it's the black area in our grayscale image. And all these materials are going to be whites. So it's kind of just the fundamental, like, very basic explanation of how that works. So I know some people might be curious, like, why can't I import something for my base material? It's because your base material that's in the terrain is actually the black content. So there's really like nothing to import. So that's kind of why you can import. For example, I can import a grass one, which I'm going to do right now. So I have a mask pre-prepared, and you can see I just built one, and I'll make sure I save, but I just imported one. And pretty much like I said before, this stuff you really need to take the time to, if you're interested in kind of being able to utilize this stuff the most, to the best ability, I would really recommend that you take some time to learn, a third-party application that's really good at, height map creation and stuff like this. I don't want to recommend or not recommend any in particular, but you can look into it on your own time if you're really interested in that, because these tools usually have quite a lot of ability to manage, your mass. And of course, you could always do it by hand in Fusion itself. So no problems there. But hopefully this has been sort of informative so far, and it hasn't been too disorganized or confusing. Of course, I'll answer questions, but right now I want to actually just showcase some of the tools here that we have up here. So we have a measure tool. It's good for measuring distances. Obviously, you can hover over these, see what they do. We have an object brush. This is where you can set up config files and pretty much put object prefabs in here, and it will let you paint them. There's the prefab bone snapping one, object selection brush. So this one, this is pretty much if you have objects here, you can hold left click, select a bunch of them, do what you want with them. It works quite nice with the, I believe it might be the entity replacer. And you can, if you paint a bunch of objects that you decide you don't like, you can then use this to replace it with a different prefab, like right on the go. So it's pretty nice. But anyway, I'll give an example, a very boring sort of part of this. Now that I'm done talking your ear off about little things, I'll just show you some like very basic usage of these tools, like terrain sculpting. Start with making the basis of a tree line of some sort, because why not? And this isn't going to be anything perfect, so don't take this as like an example or a benchmark on what you should strive to achieve with your terrains, because it's far from that. I think everybody could probably do a lot better than what I'm doing right now, but feel free to really experiment. Just really go crazy. There's no rules to this, really, besides what's fun, and what looks good is arguably subjective, but widely agreed upon, I suppose. But you can do whatever you want. This is really not so technical. This kind of the technical part of it has sort of ended, and now at this point I'm just showing you how to do different things. But you can see how I'm doing this is just left click, holding right click to look around, basic workbench controls. So if you don't know how to use the basics of the workbench, I really recommend that you go and read, of course, because I apologize if you haven't, but I'm operating under that assumption. Of course, we have hotkeys to switch between the most powerful and most useful tools in the world editor. So and that would be your scale tool, your vector entity tool, which is your polyline, your splines. Obviously, the move tool, which is W. Your rotate tool, E. So pretty much and also your ground manipulation tool. You use a lot of these constantly, and you'll find yourself just not even clicking these buttons anymore. Really, your hand will just go for the bind. But I can showcase what these do. And so we have our prefab library down here. As I mentioned at the very start, the resource browser is for all the information, all the game information, all your content, your scripts, etc. Prefab's strictly for environment objects and things pertaining to environment work. So your generators, structures, rocks, etc., etc. Surface stones. So we'll start with that. So you can see there I clicked and dragged, but you can also, if you'd like, go in here and you can find, I believe it is in here in options, shortcuts. And I really recommend this, that you take a look at this window if you haven't yet, where you can see all of your key bindings because it's quite important. I don't like F1, I prefer C. Just my preference. And pretty much what I just changed was the create entity / create prefab instance on cursor. So now wherever my cursor's at, I can see and I can just spawn stones instead of clicking and dragging, because I find clicking and dragging very cumbersome after a while. But you see here, hidden E for the rotate tool. You just hold shift, drag. If you want to not use the gizmo's there. If you want to be technical about it, it also tells you the degrees you're rotating at. It's quite nice, works well. You can use Q for a ground manipulation tool, and pretty much what this does, this will move the object along the normals of the terrain, which in layman's terms means it's like your snap to terrain function. But just be wary of this because some objects might not be set up to, like, for example, if you have an object that you want to make sure is always pointing straight up, you might have a situation where it might not be ideal, but you can also hold shift while you manipulate this and be careful about it. Obviously, all these tools, they have stuff on the side here for you to read, so plenty of reading. But just want to put some rocks down. Why not? Real simple stuff. Just have a good time with it. Just holding shift, switching between the hotkeys. Sorry if I didn't explain that all too well. As far as the, me not using the buttons very much, because I use these tools a lot, obviously, so I don't have the need to do that. And I think after like 15 minutes or maybe even less, you won't need to use that. And many of you probably already don't, and just use the hotkeys. But there's some stones. Why not? So you get the idea. There's a basic presentation on like using the scale and rotate. Hit R for scale. I can make these bigger. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend that you scale anything above 1.30, and you can see most of the prefabs down here, they're the random scale when they're placed, which is, you can see here, all these have properties in them. None of them are above 1.3, and that's for a purpose. Anything bigger than 1.3, you're gonna have issues with collision. You're gonna have issues with among plenty of other things. So please don't do that. I know it's very tempting. Say you have an area where you have a large cliff face, and your desire is to save yourself the trouble and just make the thing huge. but trust me, you do not want to do this. Please don't go above 130%. You're hurting yourself, and it's not good. It messes with a lot of things. So don't do it if you want it to work properly. If you don't care and you just want the big rock, then go for it. But if you want my advice, I would stray away. So that's really the sculpting tools and basic prefab resource browser thing. So now I'll get on to some stuff that's a little bit more actually commonly, maybe people have problems or questions about, which is our vector tools. So the polylines, the splines, the generators, which is arguably the most powerful stuff in my opinion, because this is what really breathes a lot of the life into the world. Your forests, your roads, all that stuff. So up here, once we're in our vector tool, which is V, we can select polyline or spline, and your first question might be, what's the difference? The polylines are pretty much rigid point to point. You can see here, there's no curvature to the lines. Just making this a very basic, basic understanding. Make sure you have snap to terrain checked if you don't want this to happen. But if you did this, easy fix. Just hit the select all button, and then you can hit snap to terrain, and they'll go down to where they should be. So I know I watch some people struggle with that as well, and have to think they have to go through and manually fix all their points. Yeah, you're fine. The splines are kind of like the opposite. So these will interpolate smoothness between both 2 points. So you can have much more curvy. It's to put it in layman's terms, the spline is your curvy line tool, and your polyline is the straight line tool. So to make it very simple, and again, you can just select all of these, and you can snap it down. Something I do want to note with the splines, however, though, is especially when you're using generators, in particular, I know there's a rather popular generator for beaches, which is your beach decals. But this really applies to all spline shapes. It's very likely if you have 2 points close together, such as this, you're going to end up with invalid shapes in the spline, or something crazy like this. This is unacceptable. You can't have something where the spline is intersecting with itself and all kinds of problems. You want to keep these very clean. Don't put them together. And if you see red lines in your splines, that pretty much tells you that they're invalid. So be sure to fix those. Don't let those sit around. They're not going to go away on their own. It's not a good thing to have those invalid. So please fix those. So in addition to organizing our project, like I showed at the very beginning again, I'm going to organize the hierarchy a little bit. So we can right click on here. We can create a layer, call it forest. You can of course organize this as specific as you want. This is completely up to you. You can make this however you want to make it. Very, very simple. But once we have it made, make sure you double click it to set it as active. You can also right click these to set them as active. See here, you can also lock it so that anything in there can't be touched. So if you have the tendency to accidentally start deleting things or you don't want to, you want to prevent any changes from happening to that layer, you can lock it. Make sure nothing is changed in that layer, but anyway, I'll just show these polylines. So we place these lines down with control, left click. So place these little polys around. Generator. We in our prefab library. So you can see we have a whole bunch of forests that come already with the Reforger library. Of course, you can also make your own prefabs later down the line, and in your project folder you can set up your own prefab library. That's why terrain test shows up. But for the sake of brevity and not making a whole other hour segment on configuring forest generators or any generators or the prefab library, a custom one, I'll just leave it at this. So we'll just use the default one. So we'll throw spruces down. So see, just in a mere dragging of the generator prefab onto our polyline shape, we pretty much created a small little forest. And of course, you can manipulate the points of your polyline shape freely as you want. So if you want to change the shape of the forest, you can do that. You can go crazy. Really extend it, however you want to extend it. Make sure you're saving, of course, but pretty simple stuff. If you want some tips on this, I mean, I would recommend you try to avoid too sharp of geometric shapes, because otherwise there's a good possibility you're going to end up with something that looks a little bit unnatural. But for the sake of brevity, again, let's keep it very simple. In addition, when you have generators on your polyline shapes, in your vector tool thing here, here's your object properties vector tool. You can see we have spline, or not spline, but polyline. These point data pretty much here. And this is actually where you can toggle off stuff like the middle outline and small outline, which is essentially these small shrubs and these bigger trees on the edge of the forest. It's like toggling the edge of the forest. So in the event that you have, for example, say we have two forests that are connected, and for whatever reason, say I don't want spruce here, I want birch. This is rather not ideal because it's not good for gameplay. You can't really see through this. The forests are kind of like smushed into one another. If you want to make this homogeneous, then the simple solution is to, you can move them sort of closer together even. But we can uncheck these. And then check these little points in our polyline shapes for both forests. And we can go in here under the hierarchy. It's been collapsed, and we can regenerate them. So they won't regenerate themselves automatically if you're just editing the point data. But yeah, you can see now if this were to be a birch forest that was a bit taller, or I had a different spruce generator, it would look a bit more natural. But you can see here we have the edge of the forest still here, but when there's more forest adjacent to it, then these trees and whatnot, these very open spruces that are they have so many we can call them leaves on them, because they're at the edge of the forest and they're able to collect the sunlight. Obviously your inner forest trees, they don't have that because branches down here, they're not going to be getting any light, so why would they have this? So that's the logic. It's just all about making the environments as realistic as possible, being able to have like total control. If you're running into a situation like this, very simple fix. You can just select this point, go to our vector tool, and we can subdivide this, and then we can go in here. Now that we've added another point, we can regenerate it. And you can just move this point closer. There you go. Now you have something that pretty much works here. It's fine. So pretty simple, rudimentary stuff. You can get as complicated or as simple as you want with it. I'd recommend, if you're going to make a huge terrain, be considerate with your forests, but don't go too crazy. Keep it consistent. Understand your draw calls and you know what you're really trying to pump out onto the your frame rates, and just be reasonable with it, because obviously an entire terrain that's covered in nothing but trees. These are all 3D objects. You can look through different channels, like get an understanding of what you're really rendering is pretty much what I'm trying to tell you. So be considerate of that. Make it look good, but try to make it run good too. Is like the ideal solution. But of course, Infusion is very powerful, and we have a lot of technology in here that will really assist with this. So you can have quite a lot of trees, but if you want to have for dozens and dozens of kilometers of just straight trees and just flat space, then there's only so much that technology can do to handle that. So be considerate. Next thing I'll go through is pretty much very similar stuff as with the splines, and that's roads. So just like it's a quick little thing here. If you go through here and to our generators area here, hit road dirt, and you'll see immediately that these prefabs, they come with height map editing. So we can start to look at that sort of the same way that we can look at all the objects or the options for our forest generators. So if we go in object properties, you can see adjust height map. We can turn that off if we'd like, and if you don't want to manipulate your height map at all and just want to put the roads down, you can definitely do that. I don't mind it. I will show you why. Some people might not know this, so I'll explain it. Of course, if you're completely new, then you're in luck. So pretty common occurrence is in any Arma map is you're going to have a crossroad, and eventually someone will make a road, and they'll be using this height map sort of system here, and they'll end up with something that's sort of like this. So just for sake of letting you see, I'll paint this dirt. You can see here this is quite not so good, because we have splines that are at 2 different heights. So we have a spline that starts way up here, it's kind of running down, and it's adjusting the height map, trying to make the road as smooth as possible, but in the process it's kind of overriding what this road's trying to do, which is also be the smoothest road possible. So the ideal thing to do in this situation, which I wouldn't obviously recommend that you make the splines intersecting just to the point on the line itself is fine, but go into your vector tool and go in here and go to object properties. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the entity itself. Just this road entity. We're going to select it, and you can go in here and you can. For example, you can bake selection, and that's what this button does. If you have any sort of entity like a prefab that's editing the height map, so most of the time they're roads, you can always select these entities and you can bake the selection, and then afterwards you'll have no problem with going in here and turning this off, and then the height map editing that the road generator did will be saved. So. Pretty simple. Not really too much left there to go through, really. I think we've gone through most things. Of course, I can sit here and Bob Ross it up and place a bunch of happy little trees for a good hour in silence, but I don't think it would be very informative for anybody besides maybe, I don't know, an art lesson, maybe, if I would be so good enough to do such a thing. But yeah, it's pretty much all I have to really go about as far as the basic tools go. I know I can provide quite a more elaborate explanation for all the blocks per tile and the grid sizes and more of the technical explanations, but I just wanted a small introduction, so.
All right. Thanks for this presentation.
Yeah, no problem.